Morning, everybody. As Ron said, my name is Jeremy Stoner. That really is my last name. And I'm going fishing after church today. Anybody want to go fishing with me? All right, a couple of you. Okay, cool. Anybody know how to talk to a fish? Drop them a line. Pastor Daniel, that one was for you. You're welcome. I hope you're watching online. Mitch, thank you for watching online. Thank you guys for being here in the room. Today we're going to continue in our Joshua series. We're going into Joshua 7, the story of Achan. And the reason that I brought a fishing pole with me is to give you an illustration, to give you an analogy, if you will. Different fish have different bait. My boys love catfishing. You can feed a catfish anything. They'll eat anything. They're bottom feeders. They'll eat whatever you throw out on your line. But I like to bass fish. My stepdad, when I was a kid, took me bass fishing often. And the reason that I like bass fishing is because I like the lures. The lures are almost toys for me. The shinier they are, the prettier colors that they are, the better they look for me, and the more that I like them, which is why I like bass fishing. Now, all of us, we're like fish in a sense. Every fish likes a specific type of bait or lure, and we, like fish, like our own baits and lures. Let's, just for an example, maybe you've been on a diet, like me. Dad muscle, okay? But my wife can cook. And anytime she's in the kitchen and the oven is on, it gets that beautiful smell throughout the house, that fresh baked bread, those brownies, those cookies. And my sniffer 3000 goes off. That smells good. I've already eaten and I'm not hungry, but I have to taste it. I'm dad. Dads have to taste everything to make sure that it's going to be good for the kids. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into the kitchen and had a batch of brownies that were they weren't good enough for the kids, so I had to eat them all. You're welcome, kids. Maybe yours is the Amazon shopping cart. It gets full very, very fast, doesn't it? And next thing you know, you're on a first-name basis with the Amazon guy. Prime delivery, next day shipping, all that good stuff. You've got it right there on the porch. Hey, maybe your Amazon guy has a plate of Thanksgiving food with saran wrap over it waiting for them to show up so you can give them the family meal because they're essentially part of the family at this point, right? Well, we have all sorts of different kinds of baits. Things that look appealing to us, smell appealing to us, things that we desire and we want. And I give you that illustration to give us a launch point into today's message. But let me also recap in case you've missed any of the previous Sundays in our Joshua series. We're already past where Joshua leads the Israelites across the Jordan on dry ground. They've already made it to Gilgal, and they've already set up the monument of remembrance. And they've celebrated the Passover, the first one in 40 years. Can you imagine that? All you've had for 40 years is saltine crackers in the desert, and now you get to have grapes and milk and honey and all the yummy stuff from the promised land. It's almost like a Thanksgiving for them, right? They get all the yummy food. Well, they've also gotten the word from Joshua about how they're going to conquer Jericho, and they walked in obedience. That's what Pastor Daniel walked us through last week. They walked in vulnerable obedience, and they saw the walls of Jericho fall. And from there, we step into this change all the way up to the end of chapter 6. It's just victory after victory after victory. And then chapter 7, there's this ominous change. Doom, doom, doom. It's real dark. All of a sudden, there's sin, and there's loss and defeat. This is the story of Achan's sin. Achan, he was there for the crossing of the Jordan. He didn't just show up after the fact. He was there. He didn't swim across. He walked across on dry ground. He was there when they celebrated the Passover. He was there when they walked around the walls of Jericho, and he was there when the walls of Jericho fell. So he had seen all of the beautiful victory. He had seen all of what God was doing through the nation of Israel. Almost like our kids, parents. He saw and he knew. He got the word. He knew what not to do and what to do. But he did something different. He sinned. And just like any other sin, it wasn't just a simple little white lie or simple issue. It was a deliberate, defiant disobedience. In Joshua 7:1, it'll be on the back screen. You guys misbehaved or something, so we don't get to have TV time today. It's going to be on the back wall. 3 of you laughed at that. Okay. Joshua 7:1 says, "But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Achan, the son of this guy, the son of that guy, took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Achan." Now that's wrong. Burned against Israel. But it wasn't Israel that did it. It was Achan, right? We're going to dig into that today. Joshua, leading the Israelites coming off of this win over Jericho, he gathers some of his guys and he sends them out as spies. Go check out AI and see what they've got and what we're up against. And so they go out and they come back and they say, they show up, "Hey, Josh, dude, bro, we got this. It's in the bag. Easy win. You don't even have to send the whole group. Just give me a couple of guys and we can go knock it out real quick." And so Joshua follows that good report and he sends a portion of his army down to Ai. And they come back shortly thereafter. "Joshua, we got beat. What happened? I thought God was with us. God was going to fight for us. He was going to go before us. What happened? How could we be beaten by such a small army?" A smaller and weaker army of Ai had defeated the Israelites right after they beat a fortress in obedience. They didn't have to swing a hammer or light dynamite or anything. The walls came down because they were obedient. Now, we'll find that it wasn't a military mistake or a tactical error. It was Israelite disobedience. Joshua 7:11 says, "Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possessions." Notice, God doesn't say, "Hey, Joshua, look, Achan did this. So go take care of Achan real quick, and everything will be fine." He says, no, all of Israel has sinned. All of Israel is guilty. This wasn't a military failure or a tactical mistake or a strategy snafu. It was disobedience. Joshua 7:12 says, "That is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they have been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. Until you clean this up, Joshua, can't be with you." Now, the problem is not that God is somehow weakened in the presence of sin like Superman is with kryptonite. Lex Luthor, he shows up with a little rock of kryptonite and Superman can't shoot lasers. He can't see through walls. He can't fly. He's just another normal dude. But that's not the case with God. God is not weakened by sin. Essentially what it is in sin, God's standing right here beside me until I reach into this bucket of sin. And when I pick out that thing that looks attractive to me that I want, I pick that up and essentially I pick it up and I look at God and I say, "I would rather carry this than you." That's sin. That's what we do in the act of sin. We separate ourselves from God because we would rather have whatever. And it's just like Achan's stolen treasure, worthless. It doesn't get us anywhere or do anything for us. It's almost like the same thing our kids do. Don't take the cookies out of grandma's cookie jar. But they do it anyway, even though we've told them not to. That's what Achan is doing in this scenario. But as I read this and prepared and did all of this research and stuff, I had this nagging question. God is sovereign over all things. God is powerful, and he's all-knowing and all-present. So why, then, did he not stop Achan from doing what Achan did? In that moment, God is all-present, all-knowing, all-powerful. Achan walks up, and he sees this treasure, and he says, nobody's looking. Nobody's going to know. I'm going to take it because it looks good. And he snatches it up. Why in that moment did God not say, done? You've disobeyed, you're gone, you're done. Just like that. I'm not going to make all of Israel pay. It's just you. We're going to get into that, and I'm going to show you that one. I want that question to linger in your minds for a moment as we move forward in this story. It's almost as if God was giving Achan an opportunity to clean it up. Rather than just suffer the judgment, hey, you know you shouldn't have done that, and all of these things are happening because you did that thing. You should clean that up. You should take care of that. There is a difference, and parents, you can tell me if I'm wrong. There is a difference between confession due to conviction, like I know I'm wrong, Mom, Dad, I took the cookie. I did. It was me. There's a difference between that and who took it. Somebody fess up. Somebody let me know who did it. And then finally, after days and days of lies and hidden things, okay, fine, it was me, I did it. There's a difference about that, isn't there? I think that's what God was after with Achan. Joshua has all of Israel line up. God gives Joshua clear, detailed instructions on how to investigate this for the clear purpose of allowing Achan an opportunity to come clean. So he has all of Israel line up, almost like we do our kids when they've messed up and we don't quite know who it is, so we have them all line up. Family meeting on the couch. They all line up, they sit down on the couch, and we go down the line. All right, you're too short. There's no way you could have gotten into the cookie jar, so go watch Bluey. And we go on down the line until we figure out, okay, process of deduction, it only leaves you, kid. What's up? Yeah, it was me, I did it. Why didn't you just come confess? Why didn't you just come clean? Well, we're going to figure that one out together in the story of Achan. Joshua 7:19 says, Then Joshua said to Achan, My son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and honor him. Tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me. 7:20, Achan replied, It is true. You got me red-handed. It's true. You figured it out. You've gone down the line of all the tribes of Israel and you've dismissed them one tribe at a time. And then you got to the tribe of Judah and you dismissed family after family, person after person, and I'm the only one left. You got me. It's true. I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I've done. He doesn't stop at a simple confession. He gives us a clear pattern that we're going to discuss today. Achan says, When I saw the plunder, a beautiful robe from Babylonia, 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent with the silver underneath. He didn't stop at simple, yep, I did it. You got me. He explains something to Joshua that we can learn a lot about in a modern context. The things that worked for Achan to fall into sin are the same steps that we follow as we walk into sin. Achan said, I saw, I coveted, I took, and then I hid it. Why did he hide it? There was no real reason to hide it. It wasn't an investment. He wasn't hiding it for a rainy day. He could do nothing with it. It was worthless. He couldn't trade it or barter with other Israelites with it because then they would know he had sinned. It was worthless. So why did he hide it? Guilt. He knew he had done wrong. So by investigation, we know Achan knows at this point, I messed up. I better hide it before everybody else knows. And we do the same thing, don't we? Whether it's something physical that we've taken or something that we've done or said, we do our best to hide the evidence so that we're not caught. The exposure of Achan's sin shows us that while Achan hid his sin good enough that no one else in Israel knew, God still knew. It gives validity to Hebrews 4:13. It shows us that God is all-present and all-knowing. It shows us that no matter how well we hide it, how deep we bury it, God's going to know. And, this is free, this isn't even in my notes, if God knows and God could tell Joshua, then God knows and God can tell your spouse, God can tell your parents, God can tell your boss, the same way that God told Joshua. The consequences that Achan faces is not much different than the consequences that we face. Joshua 7:24 says, "Then Joshua together with all of Israel," how many? All of Israel, thank you, "took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold bar, his sons and daughters, his cattle, donkeys, and sheep, his tent, and the partridge in a pear tree, and all that he had to the valley of Achor." Everything, all of it. Everything that was attached to Achan, all of it. Take it down to the valley of Achor. And then Joshua said, "Why have you brought this trouble on us? Today, the Lord will bring trouble on you." Then all of Israel stoned him. And after they stoned the rest, okay, I'm a grammar nerd. So when I read this, I think, what's the rest? They stoned him, and after they stoned the rest. What does that mean? Everything that's in the previous verse, the silver, the robe, the gold bar, his sons and daughters, his cattle, his donkey, his sheep, his tent, all that he had, they stoned the rest, and then they burned them. That's harsh, right? Like, it goes back to that previous question. Why would God not just deal with Achan instead of putting all of that responsibility and guilt on everyone else around him? All of Israel had faced a consequence because of his sin. They had faced defeat by Ai. Now all of his family, his cattle, his sheep, his tent, everything is destroyed because of it. Go back to the pond that we were at earlier when we were talking about fishing. Pristine, gorgeous, like glass, smooth water, completely undisturbed, just waiting for you to throw the line in. And then out of nowhere, your 3-year-old yeets a rock out into the middle of the water. Badoosh. And the water starts to what? Ripple, right? This is called the ripple effect. The ripple from that sin moved all through Israel. Now, the interesting thing, when you throw a rock into still water, it'll ripple all the way to the water's edge, all the way to the shoreline or the banks. But it doesn't stop there. It comes back. It comes all the way back. The consequence that Achan faced, although it's terrible and it's harsh and it's scary, it speaks more to God's restoring Israel than it does to God judging Achan. I want you to see that. I want you to fix your mind on that. It's more about the restoration that God performs than the judgment. Joshua 7:24, I'm sorry, we've already been there. Here's the reality. Sin isolates us from everyone around us. It divides us from God. It separates us from God, but its impact is never isolated. The impact will reach much further than we would like. While Achan's sin did not only affect him, our sin never only affects us. It has a reaching effect into our family, our community, our neighborhood, our cities, towns, and our church. Maybe you can relate. Let's put on our imaginary thinking caps from kindergarten. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you can think back to your childhood and remember a parent's addiction or sin that had an effect on you. I know I can. Maybe you can think a little less far back to a spouse that had an affair. Their sin did not just affect them. It affected you. It affected your children. It affected your community, your friends, your church. Sin never only affects you. Achan's story is not unique to Scripture. It paints a picture for us in our own lives. We can see a pattern of the progression of sin through the story of Achan. And the same steps that Achan took are the same steps that we take. When we allow sin to run its course, it always leads to destruction. It's not just an Old Testament theme. Look at James. The half-brother of Jesus writes this, James 1:14 and 15. But each person, how many people? Each person, all people. Grammar. Each are tempted when they are dragged away by their evil desires and enticed. And it doesn't stop there. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it's full grown, gives birth to death. Let me ask you a question. Are our desires sinful? Are they evil? Just by themselves? Like, you desire protection, safety, comfort, love. Everyone here is worthy of love. The love of a spouse, the love of a parent. Everyone here deserves protection and provision, food to eat, a safe place to live. We all deserve that, right? So how does that desire, that normal, healthy, appropriate desire, become an evil desire to be enticed? I'm going to show you that one. Sin has a 4-part progress. First, temptation begins with your desire. The tempter, the devil, our enemy, the one that prowls around like a roaring lion, he takes that normal, healthy, appropriate desire and he twists it. He makes it not so good. He clouds the judgment, and he makes that desire too early or premature. He makes that desire somehow justified to get to quicker than God has planned for us. Something that catches your eye or something that pulls at you. Temptation alone is not sin. Everybody's tempted. We learned that from James. Temptation never announces itself like a fire truck, Aaron. Said a different way, the devil, think about the cartoons. You got the angel on one shoulder and you got the devil on the other. The devil always looks like he's red. He's got red legs and a tail with a point. He's carrying a pitchfork and he has horns. Can I tell you something from personal experience? The devil never shows up like that. That's right. He never shows up with red legs, horns, and a pitchfork. He shows up looking like what you think you want. He shows up like a shortcut at work, a shortcut with your spouse, a white lie to cover up something. He shows up looking like what you think you want. And desires, while they may initially appear harmless and not bad, I just want a comfortable life, the devil will use those to twist things. It's called deception. He is the deceiver, the accuser of creation. Once temptation catches your attention, deception twists that desire, twists the truth of that desire and the timing of God's plan for that desire, and it leads us down a road that we don't want to go. Just a white lie, nobody will ever know. I deleted it. It's still there. God still knows. Deception, a deceived desire, will lead to disobedience. And here's how this works. The desire itself is not a bad thing until it's deceived, okay? Until deception twists that desire, your desires are appropriate. Temptation is not sin by itself, right? Everyone's tempted. Even Jesus was tempted, right? So temptation by itself is not bad. You're hardwired with appropriate desires that somehow get twisted by deception from the devil. All of those are in here, in your mind, in your head. It's all in your head. When does it become disobedience? When you act on it, when you decide. When that deceived desire becomes a decision, that's when it's disobedience. That's when you step outside of the lines and you say, I'd rather carry this than you. Disobedience leads to destruction. Now, we know that destruction is not always death. We know that from the story of Adam and Eve. God said, if you eat of this, you will surely die. They ate of it. They were fooled and tempted. Their desire was deceived, and their deceived desire turned to disobedience, and that disobedience became destruction, but it wasn't death. While our sin, the consequences of our sin, may not be immediate, they are always inevitable. It will come. It may not be physical death, but it is a death of sorts. Maybe it's the death of our integrity in a moment of dishonesty. My grandfather, rest his soul, I love that man. He said, your integrity is the most priceless thing that you give away for free. You can never buy it back once it's gone. The death of our integrity and our character through a moment of disobedience. Maybe it's the death of friendships through a habit of gossip. Can I just be real candid? You're not venting, you're gossiping. And it's sinful and you need to stop. Gossiping does nothing good for relationships or other people. The Apostle Paul says in Ephesians 4:29, let nothing unwholesome come from your mouth. Nothing. If it's not wholesome, sweetie, keep it. Don't say it. Don't put life to it. Maybe it's the death of your marriage through a moment of infidelity or a hidden addiction. Temptation will please you to abuse you. It will seduce you to undo you, and it will distract you to destroy you. Temptation leads to sin, and sin leads to disobedience and destruction. Can I give you a personal example? I'll do my best to make it through this one without running over there to the box of tissues. Your associate pastor, this guy, this dude right here, I used to be a bottle-a-day alcoholic. And I don't mean a little fifth from the gas station. I mean a handle of whiskey from the ABC store, the Alphabet store. I used to say it to my kids so they wouldn't think alcohol. I'm just going to go to the Alphabet store every single day as soon as I left work. There were only 2 times that I was not intoxicated or actively drinking: when I was at work or when my children were physically with me. And I hid it. I hid it very well for a long time. A lot of people that I worked with didn't know. A few people did, but those were the few people that I would drink with. That addiction, while hidden, threatened my job, even though my boss didn't know. My boss had no clue. I kept getting great marks at work. But that addiction affected my conduct, my behavior, my character, my integrity. I started making questionable judgment calls. And it made it very difficult to continue. It also became the reason that I would prematurely end a relationship with a really great woman. But my sin didn't end in destruction. Although I destroyed a lot of things on the way through it, it didn't end in destruction. Your sin does not have to end in destruction. Let me give you 4 quick steps to walking in the freedom of Christ. Number 1, recognize the lure. Recognize the bait. Call it for what it is. That website, it's not leading you down a good path. Call it what it is. It's not going to help you. Each person is tempted. All of us are dragged away by our evil desires and enticed. Don't let that desire become deceived. Number 2, stop hiding. Start confessing. I can't tell you how good it was to confess that. I thought, when I confess this, it's over. She's gone forever. But that's not what happened. I had been deceived. I had been led to believe a lie. Instead, she forgave me. And she still married me. Probably for my last name, but she still married me nonetheless. Hebrews 4:13 says, nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the one to whom we will give account. God knows everything. And just like God can deliver that truth to Joshua, He can deliver that truth to people in your life too. Proverbs 28:13 says, he who conceals his sin does not prosper, but whoever confesses and renounces them finds mercy. I firmly believe that God showed me the validity of that verse, that passage, in my relationship. When I confessed the truth, and my now wife said, okay. Okay? Really? I broke up with her via text on her birthday. And she still married me. Like somebody, I got the best one. I found through that what I hide will cause harm. But what I confess can become the foundation for healing. Number 3, remove the bait. Look, Jesus took this one real serious. In Matthew 5:29, he says, if your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. Now stop. Nobody reach for the pen in the seat back in front of you. There will be no eye gouging today. Can I just be real? Stop looking at it. Just stop. Don't look at the thing that the devil's going to use to drag you down a path that you can't walk, that leads to nothing good. Number 4, replace the temptation with truth. King David said in Psalm 119:11, I have hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. To avoid sin, replace the lie of the deceiver with the truth of the one who made you, the truth of the one who has a plan and purpose for your life, the truth of the one that has good things for you. Remove the lie and replace it with truth. Temptation will lead to sin, and sin will lead to destruction. And for Achan, that destruction was his death. Now, I'm not the only one who was able to confess before destruction came. King David did too. And honestly, he hid his sin in so much worse of a way. He hid it with murder. The difference between Achan and David confessed. David sought the Lord, and he was restored. Achan, you got me, red-handed, and he died. He wasted all that time that he could have confessed and sought God. But David didn't. When he was confronted with it right then, tore his clothes, threw dust on his head, and he repented. He confessed. This morning, we've had some pretty heavy stuff. Pastor Daniel gave me an easy one. But the reality is, it's supposed to be heavy. It's supposed to be heavy so that it becomes a burden, so that you see what Jesus says when he says, come to me those who are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. It's supposed to be heavy. because you're not supposed to carry it. Some of us in this room were carrying a weight that we were never designed to carry. And this morning, I'm going to invite you to enter into a moment that David entered into. In Psalm 139, he says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." In a moment, I'm going to pray. And it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot. But if you're carrying a weight, right here's where to drop it. Walk out of this place without that weight, and you'll know the feeling of freedom that only God can give. Alcohol won't give it. Any other addiction won't give it. Images won't give it. Relationships won't give it. The only relationship that will is the relationship with God through Christ. And while it might be difficult to confess it to that spouse that you've been hiding it from, I know it was. I know it was tough. It hurt. I could see the hurt. But the restoration that comes from that is so much sweeter. Trust can be rebuilt. A relationship can be restored. God, thank you for this day. And thank you for the truth of your word that tells us that you love us beyond measure. That you love us so much that you died to restore us, to reconcile us back to you, to bring us out of that sin and despair that we've walked ourselves into. God, thank you for restoring my life. God, I pray that you would restore the lives of everyone under the sound of my voice. Whether they're at home, in the car, or here in the building, God, I pray that you would hear the confession. God, I pray that you would give them the bravery and the courage that it takes to take that first step. And let them move under your power to lay the burdens that they've carried for far too long at your feet. As the band leads us, if you're feeling that weight, right here and right now is the time and place to put it down. And if you would like prayer, somebody will be here ready to pray with you.